Hello everyone, today we're going to talk about the GH4 and in combination with the Metabones 0.58x speed booster. Now, why should you consider this? Now, on the market there are 0.64 speed boosters which are called the Metabones XL, and they serve a pretty good purpose, but this only reduces the crop factor of the GH4 to approximately 1.5 when shooting 4K. Now, if that is not enough for you, or you consider that the 0.64x speed booster is quite expensive and they do cost a lot, you could consider to get the older and faster 0.58x speed booster. Now, I did find mine on eBay for about 110 euros. Actually, I bought them in British pounds, but you should be able to get around 130 to 150 euros for this adapter. Now, why should you consider it? Now, when shooting in 4K, the GH4 does have an additional crop over the 2x crop by the sensor itself. So you are talking about a 2.2, 2.3x crop factor when you are talking about the GH4 when shooting 4K. Now, you can alleviate this crop factor by using a speed booster, and this speed booster in specific, which is filming me right now on the Blackmagic micro cinema camera, it is specifically made for that camera, which has a crop factor of about 3x, 2.88x to be more precise. And when used in a micro four thirds camera, so the GH4 in this case, it does reduce the sensor to an astonishing 1.16 crop factor, which is almost full frame. That's how amazing it can get. Now, let's go into the pros and cons of using this solution in comparison to the official and officially supported 0.64x speed booster. Now, first thing first, we have to talk about the mechanics and the fact that this particular speed booster has a protrusion on the lower half, much more than the 0.64x speed booster. Now, what does this mean? It means that when you're mounting it on a GH4, you will push in the shutter assembly a little bit, and it will eventually scratch it if you mount it enough times, as you can see on screen right now. Now, this might not be an issue for you, and it isn't an issue for me, because I can I love the advantages that it gives me, and the disadvantages of that small scratch are not too worrying for me, especially as the GH4 can be found quite cheaply nowadays, about 150 euros or even less. Now, that being said, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Okay, so first thing first, indeed, you cannot use the physical shutter when using this specific adapter. If you do, the shutter will clog or stop midway through, and this will appear as an error on the back screen on the LCD of the camera. Now, so it will show up here and in the viewfinder as well, and it will request you to shut down the camera and turn it back on. Now, I only did this for science 2 times, once from my stupidity and one from my curiosity. In my curiosity attempt, I did not damage the shutter, and neither did I do it in the second time that I've accidentally released the mechanical shutter when using the adapter. Now, does that mean it will never get damaged? No. If it stops, it means it had some protrusions, especially the glass part, that stopped it from moving all the way down. So that means in the future, if you continue to do this, you will damage the shutter. So under no circumstances should you use the mechanical shutter of the camera when using the adapter. You do have an electronic shutter, and on screen you can see how to activate it, and you should always use the electronic shutter if you're going to use this camera for stills. And now let's get into the most important part, which is the video part. Now, I suspect most of the people who buy this combination, specifically the GH4 or the GH5 and GH5S, GH6, whatever, I think they have the same assembly, but I cannot guarantee. I know it works for the GH4. I heard some people saying that on the GH5S it works as well, but that's not guaranteed. I cannot test it. It's just a rumor. Now, in video, this combo is astonishing. In video, you do not have a mechanical shutter, so there is no risk of damaging anything. You do have the crop of the camera. It turns from 2.3x to about 1.35, which is amazing. This is APS-CH, or as Canon named it, APS-CH, which is the sensor size of the actual sensor used by the Canon 1DC, which is one of Canon's cinema line in a 1DX body. And that is a professional camera which was launched for about $10,000, and it shoots cinema 4K as the GH4 does as well, and it should sit in true 24 FPS as the GH4 as well. And using this speed booster, you get the exact same crop factor. Okay, so this is the Nikon version of this adapter. As you can see it on screen right now, the Canon EF version of this adapter does not work anymore, as Metabones did kill the firmware. And now if you connect the EF version to the GH4 or GH5 for that matter, it will say no lens is connecting, and the camera will basically be useless. Now, that being said, let's go on. So, as I said, you will not be able to use any EF glass because the Nikon adapter uses a longer flange distance, and so you would only be able to use Nikon F glass. Now, that might be a drawback for you. It might not be a drawback for many people. It's definitely not a drawback for me, as I am a very passionate Nikon user. I have my trusty D610 here, and I have a lot of glass for the Nikon ecosystem. But that being said, if you're trying to if you're trying to get more lenses in your lineup, Nikon lenses are especially good because they are really cheap on the market right now, and especially cheaper than the Canon versions of the same exact lens. Say I have the Sigma 8-16 here. I bought this for about $150 or euros. I live in Europe, but you can figure as well. And the EF version of the exact same lens with the exact same mechanics, the only difference being the mount, it was about 50% more at $200-ish or euros, and that's a substantial amount. So I recommend getting into the Nikon lens mount, as it has very cheap lenses for your money. Now, if you are planning to build up your lens lineup and, I don't know, do this professionally, and you wanna be paid, you wanna go to cinema lenses in the future, unfortunately, Nikon is not necessarily the best lens mount you should choose. You should rather choose EF. Now, that being said, let's get back to it. So in video, this is an amazing camera. With 1.35 crop factor in 4K, this is literally the best you can do. You actually have about the same field of view as you would have with a GH4 and the Metabones speed booster, which is amazing, considering that the GH4 does have this handicap or having an extra 1.15 crop in 4K. So this is absolutely astonishing. Now, in full HD, you might have some soft corners, as you can see here, and you could see the same results if we use the whole sensor where you can see it on screen right now, the corners of the images using this speed booster are really soft, because I think it's not really made for this type of sensor size, and so they didn't optimize the corners. Now it does cover the whole sensor, but that means that in the corners you will not have enough sharpness, and it's not just a bit soft, it's very soft in the corners, so corners are generally unusable. Now those corners completely vanish when shooting 4K, and I think that's the main objective of people buying a GH4. Shoot 4K, shoot cinema 4K, maybe shoot some slow motion with full HD, so you're using a little bit more of the sensor, but you do get some of those soft corners cropped out when using the full sensor width, because you're not using the full sensor height. So the full sensor height is not used, so then some of those corners get cropped out. So basically what I'm saying is, for video, this is amazing. This is absolutely astonishing. You get 1 2/3 more stops of light. To put this in perspective, say you're using the GH4 with a normal, not speed boosted adapter. I don't have one, it's one over there, but you get the point. Same lens, let's say a 50mm 1.8. Let's see if I have it here. It's over there as well. Then you would get f1.8, right? So say you have the same exposure with that lens, the 50mm 1.8, and you need ISO 2500. Okay, alright, you're gonna have a lot of noise because this is a micro four thread sensor, and so it doesn't have that great signal to noise ratio, and it doesn't have that low light ability to have noiseless images. On top of the fact that you have a wider field of view now, you also are literally shooting at f1, so an f1.8 lens turns into an f1 lens, which means that if you were to use the same f1.8 metric as before, you could drop the ISO to 800. This makes a ton of difference for noise in your shots, and makes a whole lot of difference when you're shooting in extremely low light scenarios, as at night or in poorly lit environments. This is amazing. So apart from the fact that you get a great lens lineup and a good crop factor, good bokeh characteristics, you get more of your lenses, you get more field of view, or you use more of your lens than if you would have used a normal adapter or a speed booster adapter. You now get a lot more light, and for this specific sensor, for micro four threads, that light is crucial to getting those almost full frame like low light capabilities and bokeh. So again, this is absolutely astonishing. So if you have a GH4 and you have about 150 euros to spend, and you maybe have already some Nikon lenses, I absolutely recommend this combination, because it will give you such good depth of field and low light capabilities that you would literally think that your GH4 turned into a full frame camera. Now, so let's recap. So for photo, the advantages are, you get the Nikon F lens lineup, which is great cheap lenses. You get more wide lenses, you get full frame lenses, and you can use more of those lenses, more field of view for those lenses as any other adapter. You get a lot more light, and this actually does make a difference when you're shooting in low light scenarios. But the main drawback for stills, specifically stills, is the fact that you have a lot of problems with those soft corners. If you don't mind, sure, grab it, it's a good adapter for you. But if you do mind corner to corner sharpness, and especially if you do care about very soft corners, you shouldn't get this for photography. For videography, and also for photography, if you're using electronic shutter, because you'll be using electronic shutter only, you will get banding, as you can see here, and this you cannot really get away with, because, you know, banding and the sensor is not that quick. So again, you cannot combat this by, you can combat this by using an ND, but apart from that, you can't do anything really. You could go back to a micro four photos lens and you can use the mechanical shutter, no problem. For video, this is absolutely astonishing. You get a 1.35 crop factor. You get 1 stop and 2/3 more light. This is absolutely astonishing for low light and for very little noise in your images. You get a much better lens lineup. Nikon glass is cheaper. You get a lot of fast lenses for very little money. You do lose the ability to autofocus, but when you're using it for video, you don't really have this drawback because you would have used manual focus anyway, as the autofocus in the Panasonic cameras up to the G9 too, they do not have great autofocus, and so you would have very jumpy autofocus. So you'd have used manual focus anyway for video, so that's not a drawback. So again, you have only advantages for video and 0 disadvantages. For photo, it's a whole other conversation. I personally do not recommend this. If you're going for photo, you might as well get the 0.64 crop factor Metabones speed booster, the XL. You pay a little bit more, but you can get the Canon version, which allows you to autofocus. You have a lot more versatility in that. But again, for video, this is the best combination, and you get from a normal GH4, which is already a good camera, you get almost a cinema camera, with the only drawback that generally this camera has is that it shoots 4K in 8-bit. That's the 8-bit 420. So that will be the only drawback of this camera anymore. It will have great low light ISO. It will have great coverage. Well, the focal length wise, it will have great bokeh characteristics. I honestly cannot think of a disadvantage at this point for the GH4. Again, same problems of the GH4 with the 8-bit 4K are still there, but you can somewhat combat them using the methods you would have used anyway. So I hope you learned something. I'll throw some video in some sample video in this video, and hopefully you can see for yourself the difference that this adapter makes, and hopefully I helped you decide if this is a good investment. But again, you almost get a full frame like camera on a micro four thirds system with all the versatility of a video focused camera. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. Let's do some acrobatics here. Okay, successfully closed my door. Let's get back to the video.